Hi everyone, it's Marie from Nicole Designs, and I am here today. I want to show you how you can make your own DIY stencils using your die cuts. I'm also going to be using some of this Nuvo Embellishment Mousse today and a little bit of this Glimmer paste, and I think these are all just fabulous products and fun to play with. So we're going to start here by opening up one of these dies, and you can just pop off this little button that comes on the packaging, and you can either save that if you want, they're kind of cute, or you can just throw them in the recycling, whatever you want to do. I love these packages because they have that flap on top that's perforated, so you can go ahead and rip it off if you want. You could also leave it on if you wanted to leave it on, but these packages are just nice for putting your dies back into and storing them just the way they are, and it kind of helps me solve that problem of how to store these dies. I just stick them back on the sheet and put them back into my little baskets that I have on my craft shelf, and they store really nicely. So here's a look at these dies. They're really an intricate design, and you have two pieces that come with these dies, the design plate and the frame plate. Now, one of the nice things about these dies is the frames fit around any of the designs. So any of these dies that you might get that are the same size, you can change up these frames. They have all kinds of different edges around them, so you can change them according to whatever design you want, or you can cut the design without the frame, which is what I'm going to be doing here on a piece of plain white cardstock, and you'll get that design without cutting out the whole rectangle piece. So if you want your design to be on a piece of paper larger than just an A2 size card, you don't have to cut it out with that frame, but you also can, if you want, to just cut it out in one piece. So you have that versatility to use these dies in several different ways. So I'm using this die, like I said, I cut it out with some plain white cardstock. I'm going to be using this as a stencil. Now that's gorgeous all on its own. You can make a fun shaker card if you cut several of these pieces and stack them up, fill it with some shaker pieces. I'm using it as a stencil here today, and I'm going to be doing some Nuvo Embellishment Mousse using this sort of DIY stencil. Now the color I'm using is Poppy Pink. It's actually part of the Blue Blossom trend that is just coming out here recently. It's a gorgeous light pink. I just love it. If you guys follow me, you know that I love the lighter colors, and I know it's a little bit hard to see here on camera, but you can kind of see the shine going on to my white paper. It just adds a really light pink, which I think is really lovely for florals, and even though it's kind of a really fun and busy design, using a lighter color on this white cardstock kind of mutes it a little bit so that you can do some layering on top, and it's not going to be such an in-your-face kind of design when you're done. So I'm using some of these nylon stencil brushes from Nuvo. These actually work amazing with this mousse to apply it. I get a nice even coat, and if you notice, I am stenciling, but it's also covering that front piece, my DIY stencil. So I'm actually getting two card fronts by doing one technique. And I love getting more bang for my buck. I love being able to make card sets. So this is a great way to do that. So you can see here I've got both pieces all stenciled, got my mousse on there. I went ahead and I hit it with my heat tool just to speed up the drying process, but if you put a thin layer down, you really don't need to heat it, and you don't need to wait all that long for it to dry. It dries fairly quickly. So I'm taking one of those frame dies and I'm putting it around this piece that I've stenciled. I'm going to cut that out, and then I'm going to have my two pieces, two front pieces, one's stenciled, one's the die cut. It's kind of a negative, positive kind of thing. And I have two card fronts, and I can make two cards out of this. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you how I kind of turn both of these pieces into cards. But I also want to show you how you can go ahead and stencil with the Glimmer paste. So what I'm going to do is going to go ahead and cut out another design. This is that other die design that I showed you in the beginning. Same size as the first one I used. It's got that interchangeable frame. I just cut it out of an A2 size piece of cardstock that I trimmed down with my paper trimmer, again with just plain white cardstock. I'm going to take some of this glimmer paste and just stencil it on. Now this is Esmeralda green, this glimmer paste, and I'm just going to go ahead and spread it on with my little Nuvo spatula. This works so great for spreading this glimmer paste, and it's actually really smooth. Even for having a lot of glitter in it, it's not a really gritty texture. It's really smooth. It goes on really nicely. I'm just going to try to make sure that I fill in all of these areas from my stencil or my die cut. And I just want to get a really nice stenciled background. Now, this is kind of doing the same thing that I did with the mousse. I'm getting my stenciled background, and it's also applying glimmer paste to my die cut stencil. So I'm kind of getting two backgrounds with one technique here. So all in all, I ended up with 4 backgrounds that I could then layer and make cards on. I used 2 of the backgrounds and I made 2 cards. So I also have these 2 other backgrounds that I can go back and quickly add a sentiment or make it into a card if I want to. I think it's just really fun to be able to use these die cuts as your own stencils. Gives you a little bit more bang for your buck. You can go ahead and die cut them or stencil them, lots of different uses, and I think it looks terrific. So I'm just making sure that I have no little gaps or anything in this stenciled background that I missed. I'm going to try to put some of this glimmer paste back into my jar and save it for later and not waste a whole lot. I did want to mention too that it's actually really easy to clean up your area if you have some baby wipes on hand or you just take your tools to a sink. These spatulas wipe off really easy, and the baby wipes can wipe up your glass mat as easy as well. So it doesn't have to be a super messy project. I am not a messy crafter at all. I tend to like to be clean, but the glimmer paste doesn't give me any problems with that. I have no issues of getting it all over the place. I feel like it's just a really easy paste to use and to clean up. So now that I have this stenciled, I'm going to carefully peel off that front piece, and I find it's easiest to peel it off when it's still wet. If you let it dry, it's going to stick and you're going to rip your cardstock. So carefully peel it off when it's wet, and you're going to have a really fun glimmered paste background. So you have these 2 pieces, the front and the stenciled design, and you can make them both into cards if you choose. I went ahead and I let them dry overnight. I came back the next day to finish these cards, and you can see I have 4 backgrounds that are ready to be made into cards. So what do you do with these backgrounds once you have them done? Anything you want, really, but I'm going to go ahead and use this mousse background with some of these Peony stamps. These are some new stamps from Tonic. You can get them on their website. This one that I'm using here is called Peony Bloom. It's got all these gorgeous big floral images and leaves. I went ahead and I colored it with some Nuvo alcohol markers. These 3 markers came with the Blue Blossom set as well. The Nuvo alcohol markers come in a pack of 3. You get a light, a mid-tone, and a dark alcohol marker, so it's really easy to get those 3 tones on your images and blend them together. They make it really easy to get different shades, different colors of the alcohol markers to build your stash. So I went ahead and I colored it with that, and I'm adding them with some foam adhesive. Now these are Craft Perfect foam squares. I've got the really small ones. Just adding some to the flowers, and then I'm using my leaves and I'm just going to layer those in around my flowers. So these leaves are also from this Peony Blooms stamp set. I colored these as well with some Nuvo alcohol markers. Again, it was a pack of 3. You get the 3 tones of green, so you can do the light, the mid-tone, and the darkest shade, and just blend those out and get a really nice blend. You know those colors are going to work together because they come in a pack of 3. So it kind of takes a lot of the guesswork out of building your alcohol marker collection. Now, the alcohol markers from Nuvo, they are a bullet nib. They're not a brush nib, so keep that in mind if you have a preference between brush or bullet, but they work really great for these images, and I was pleased with the colors that resulted from using them. So I went ahead, I layered on my leaves, my flowers, and I'm going to stamp out a simple sentiment. This sentiment is actually from one of these floral sets as well from Tonic. I honestly don't remember which set I grabbed it from, but it's really great that all these sets work together. You can mix and match the images and the sentiments to put them on cards. I'm using a little bit of the Nuvo the Nuvo embossing ink to stamp this sentiment on a piece of thinner parchment paper, and then I'm going to go ahead and emboss it with some gold embossing powder. So I'm just going to put my coffee filter down underneath my parchment paper, sprinkle on some of that embossing powder, and tap off the extras, and then just hit it with my heat tool. Once that embossing powder is melted, you'll see it melt. Once you hit it with your heat tool, you'll know when it's done. You don't have to overheat it at all. Once you see that powder start to melt, that's good enough. So just take your heat tool away before you warp your paper too badly, and then you can go ahead and use your sentiment on your card. I cut this sentiment down to a narrow strip. I'm going to add it with a little bit of my Nuvo Deluxe liquid glue, and I'm just kind of nestling it in there behind these leaves and these flowers, and then I'm going to trim off the side. You can see that it's kind of hanging off the side there, a little bit too long. A lot of times I like to cut my strip longer than I need because it's always easier to cut it down. Is not so easy to make it work if it's too short. So I like to leave it long until I have it where I want it, and then I'll trim off that side to make sure it fits on there just perfectly. So this is mainly my card. You can see that beautiful stenciled background in the background. It's a nice busy design, but it doesn't take away from the flowers because it's kind of a sort of a muted color. It blends in with the rest of the colors of the card. So even if you have a really crazy design, a busy design of your dies or your stamps, you can tone it down just by using the different colors that you have in your stash. I'm going to finish this card off by using some Champagne Shine sequins by Nuvo, just applying them with a little bit of my liquid deluxe glue. And I think this card looks fabulous. Now I did put this on a card base, just an A2 size card base, so it's 5.5 by 4.25, and that finished my card. Now my other background that I used, showed you earlier, this actual stencil part that I used, I turned that into a card as well. I went ahead and stamped out some of the leaves from the other floral sets, arranged it in a little circle, added a little sentiment and some more sequins, you can see right here, and this is another gorgeous card. So you can get 2 cards out of one technique. I hope this helps you guys with a little bit of inspiration, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!